The rain didn't just fall that evening. It tore through the world like grief itself. Fat drops drummed on the hood of a sleek black limousine that had no business being on that dirt road. Inside sat Ethan Cole, a man whose fortune could buy silence, power, and obedience. But at that moment, none of those things mattered. His hands gripped the steering wheel as his eyes fixed on a small, desperate scene unfolding just beyond the windshield. A boy, thin, small, barely 10, was being kicked out of a rundown house. The man at the door shouted, his voice sharp even over the thunder. "You think you're something? You're nothing! Just like your father, a coward who ran." He shoved the boy hard. A small backpack hit the mud, and the boy stumbled after it, trying to protect what little he owned. The door slammed behind him, leaving him alone in the storm. Ethan felt something inside him twist. The boy's soaked clothes clung to his tiny frame, his hair plastered to his forehead. Yet he didn't cry. He just stood there, silent, his chin trembling but his eyes hard, eyes that burned with a mix of pain and pride. Then he turned toward the road and began to walk. Ethan didn't even realize he had opened the car door until cold rain slapped against his face. The air smelled of wet earth and iron. He stepped out, his polished shoes sinking into the mud as he followed the boy at a distance. His expensive coat did nothing against the chill that seeped into his bones. He could have driven away. He could have told himself it was none of his business. But something in that child's face, it was hauntingly familiar. When the boy stumbled, Ethan hurried forward. "Hey," he called softly. "Are you all right?" The boy froze. His small hands clenched around the straps of his torn backpack. He didn't look up right away. When he finally did, Ethan felt his breath catch. The resemblance was undeniable. The same gray-blue eyes, the same sharp jawline, even the same stubborn set to the mouth. "Who are you?" the boy asked. Ethan knelt down, his heart pounding. "Just someone who wants to help." The boy's lip trembled. "People only help when they want something back." It was such a grown-up thing to say, so full of old wounds. Ethan swallowed the ache rising in his chest. "Not everyone," he said quietly. "Not this time." He took off his coat and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders, ignoring the mud that splashed onto his white shirt. They found shelter under a broken shed. The wind howled through the cracks, but it was dry enough for them to sit. The boy stayed silent for a long time, shivering but refusing to complain. Ethan didn't push. He waited. Finally, the boy whispered, "His name's Greg. My mom's gone. He was supposed to take care of me. But he said I eat too much, that I don't belong there." Ethan's chest tightened. "What's your name, son?" "Liam," he murmured. "Liam Cole." The world tilted. Ethan's throat went dry. He had known. Deep down, he had known from the moment he saw him. But hearing his last name shattered the fragile wall he'd built around his heart. He remembered the fights with his ex-wife, the endless hours at work, the promises he never kept. He had sent money, yes, but never himself. And now, here was the cost of his absence, a boy cast out into the storm. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. "Liam," he said softly, "you're not alone anymore. I promise." The boy looked at him uncertain. "Why now?" Ethan hesitated. "Because I finally saw what I should have seen long ago." Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating their faces, one hardened by life too soon, the other softened by regret too late. That night, Ethan brought Liam to the nearest hotel. He ordered food, dry clothes, and a room with warmth and light. As Liam ate in silence, Ethan sat by the window staring at the reflection of his son. For the first time in years, he didn't think about business or deals. He thought about the boy who had every reason to hate him. When Liam finally drifted to sleep, curled up beneath thick blankets, Ethan whispered to the empty room, "I'll fix this, no matter what it takes." Outside, the rain slowed to a whisper. The storm had passed, but for Ethan, it had only just begun. The morning light crept softly into the small cabin, touching the rough wooden walls with a pale gold warmth. Nayeli stirred in her bed of blankets and straw, her body aching but alive. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. only that she wasn't lying in the dirt anymore. Then she saw him, the farmer. He sat at a small table by the window, patching a torn sleeve, his shoulders broad beneath a worn flannel shirt. The smell of coffee and fresh bread filled the room. He turned when she shifted, his eyes kind but cautious. "You're awake," he said, his voice low, gentle. "How are you feeling?" Nayeli's throat was dry. I don't know." Her voice cracked. "Where am I?" "My farm," he said simply. "Found you near the barn 2 nights ago. You were half frozen." Nayeli's gaze drifted down. Her legs, or what was left of them, were wrapped carefully in clean cloth. She touched the bandages, then pulled her hands away quickly, shame rushing through her chest like a knife. "You should have left me there." Jacob shook his head. "Couldn't do that? You were still breathing." She let out a bitter laugh. "They didn't think that mattered." He frowned. "Who's they?" "My people," she whispered. "The tribe. The Apache. They said I was useless. A woman without legs brings bad luck. So they left me like trash." Jacob's hand stilled on the cloth. For a moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Then he said quietly, "I don't know much about your tribe, but I do know this. You're not useless." Nayeli looked away. "You don't know me." "No," he admitted. "But I know what it looks like when someone's still fighting to live." He handed her a mug of warm tea. She hesitated before taking it, her fingers trembling. The warmth seeped into her palms, and for the first time in days, something inside her softened. Not trust, not yet, but something close to it. Days passed slowly after that. Jacob didn't ask many questions, and Nayeli didn't offer many answers. He went about his chores, feeding the animals, repairing fences, plowing fields, and she watched from the window, silently. Every evening he'd make dinner, simple meals of beans and corn, sometimes wild rabbit. He never treated her like a burden. After a week, she insisted on helping. "I can do something," she said, her eyes steady. He hesitated. "You need to rest." "I've rested enough. Please." So he found small things for her to do, sorting seeds, cleaning vegetables, mending old clothes. It wasn't much, but it gave her hands purpose. He built her a wooden ramp so she could move outside in the old wheelchair he'd repaired from scraps. It creaked and rattled, but when she rolled into the sunlight for the first time in weeks, she laughed. A real laugh, raw and free. Jacob froze when he heard it. It had been so long since laughter had filled this house. As days turned into weeks, something gentle grew between them. They didn't speak much, but silence wasn't empty anymore. It carried warmth, the kind that healed wounds words never could. One evening, as the sky burned orange and pink, Nayeli said softly, "Why did you help me?" Jacob paused, leaning on the fence. "Because someone once helped me," he said. "After my wife died, I stopped caring about anything. I thought about ending it all. Then one night, an old neighbor found me drunk in the snow. He dragged me back, made me promise to try again. I guess I'm just paying it forward." Nayeli looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe we both got saved by the storm." He smiled. "Maybe." Months passed. Nayeli began making jewelry from beads, feathers, and stones she collected near the stream. Jacob helped her sell them at the town market. People were drawn to her, to the way her dark eyes shone with quiet strength, to the grace she carried despite her broken body. Soon, her small crafts became known across nearby villages. She was no longer the useless one. She was Nayeli, the woman who survived. Then, one spring morning, Jacob came running into the house holding an old newspaper. "You need to see this," he said. She looked up from her work. On the front page was a headline, "Millionaire Ethan Cole funds Center for Disabled Veterans and Indigenous Rehabilitation, the Nayeli Hope Foundation." Her hands trembled as she read. "Nayeli Hope. That's my name," Jacob nodded. "He named it after you. Says he was inspired by an Apache woman who lost her legs but not her will to live." Tears filled her eyes. "How could he know my story?" Jacob shrugged softly. Maybe stories like yours travel on the wind. That evening, they sat together on the porch. The air smelled of rain and earth. Naomi watched the horizon, where the sky stretched wide and golden. "He called it hope," she whispered. "Maybe that's what I became." Jacob smiled, watching her silhouette against the fading light. "You were never useless," he said. "You just needed someone to see you." She looked at him then, really looked, at the man who had found her in the mud, who had rebuilt her piece by piece without asking for anything. "And you needed someone to remind you life still has something beautiful left." Their hands met quietly between them. Rough, scarred, human. The wind rustled the cornfields, whispering through the night. Somewhere far away, a father and son began their new life together. Here, a woman and a farmer found a reason to keep breathing. Different stories, same truth. The heart heals in the most unexpected places.